never felt more alive.
I never felt more alive than right at this moment, Jude.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to another exciting edition of Old School, New School Football. He's Jude Allume. I'm Wil Masisak. He's the new school, I think. Actually, he's old school for a young guy, and I'm new school for an old guy. How about that? Flipping it on you.
Yeah, layers, different levels to it.
Definitely layers to it, especially before your morning coffee, which is where I am right now, Jude. How's it going? How are you?
No coffee for you, no sleep for me. So I think we're kind of on the same playing field there.
No sleep till Coney Island. I mean, that was the original title. I don't even know that.
I'm going to just assume that's like an old school thing, and I'm going to just nod my head in agreement. Yeah.
No Sleep Till Brooklyn. Come on, man.
No Sleep Till Brooklyn. I've heard of that. Yeah.
It was originally no Sleep Till Outer Queens.
Like a 60s, 70s thing.
60s, 70s. Oh my God. No.
I'm not hip. I'm sorry.
No, it's not 60s or 70s. Sorry. Hey, the NFL I think it was the NFL Network asked a question on Twitter yesterday, which was, who is the player that made you fall in love with the NFL? Mine was a really, really old school guy you won't know, but go ahead. What is your answer?
I got two. First was Emmitt Smith, which is crazy considering I'm a New York sports fan and he's
the most overrated running back of all time. Yeah,
to each his own. But
I'm just messing with you.
But I was like 4 years old and I was like, man, I want to be a Cowboy. And I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys and they just dominated national TV at that time. And all of a sudden, Emmitt Smith is just running touchdowns left and right. And I'm like, I like this guy. And then it was Peyton Manning. Like, I never really wanted to be a quarterback, but there was just something about, I think the first game I ever watched was that, I think it was a Monday night game against Tampa Bay where they came back, where it was basically like the game's over. They're down by like 30 something points and they come back and score these points in like the last few minutes of the fourth quarter and win. And I was like, that guy is like the greatest of all time. And from there, I just had to always watch Peyton Manning. Let's see how old this old guy you're talking about is here.
So 1968.
Yeah, I'm out already.
4 years old. All pro that year, though. So he's an all pro. He's a linebacker for the Baltimore Colts. You want to take a stat? His name was Mike Curtis. And he got sort of like, at the time, the Colts were really good. They had Johnny Unitas, and they were a fun team to follow. I didn't even know. I was living in Pittsburgh, 4 years old. No idea that Pittsburgh even had a team. That's how bad they were in the late 60s. So my whole advent of watching the NFL, I had no concept that Pittsburgh had a team until like 71 or 72. Yeah. I think the only reason I knew they had a team in 71 was because my neighbor dated the starting quarterback for the Steelers at that time, Terry Hanratty. Anyway, Mike Curtis was the sort of predecessor to like your Jack Ham, the guy who would now be in the league, like your coverage linebacker, who was a weak side linebacker. And that's what I wanted to do when I played football. I was a weak side linebacker in a 4-3. And then, so I had these role models. I had Mike Curtis and then Jack Ham that were amazing outside linebackers. And I thought that was about the greatest thing you could do on defense, because at that time, everybody else on defense pretty much had one role that they were assigned at the beginning of the play. And only the weak side outside linebacker had a read responsibility. So basically I had to decide what the play was and go for it on every play versus having a job that I had to do compared to everybody else. So I thought that was fun.
This tracks for you quite well. It's very on brand. Everybody, they start playing football. They're like, yeah, I want to play quarterback. I want to play running back. I want to play receiver. And you're like, I want to play weak side linebacker.
It's true. It's a sickness for sure. Yeah. But anyway, that was fun. Although the first quarterback that really wowed me was Terry Bradshaw, of course. And I mean, both his beginning of his career was nutso because he was 1 week he would be Patrick Mahomes, and the next week he was, who's the worst quarterback you've ever seen? Like he was unbelievable when he was bad. But then once he kind of got it together, it was
hey, listen, 4 Super Bowls will get you.
Yeah,
people forget people are gonna forget about those bad years, man. 4 Super Bowls, it'll do that for you.
He won a lot of games in the league MVP, so we're all right. Speaking of MVPs in week 6, let's talk a little bit about week 6, and I'm going to work you towards my question, which is going to be, who looks like your MVP. So let's start with that question. Who's your NFL MVP at this point, and point me towards that team's game last week.
So we've got some guys going up. We've got some guys going down. I just want to give an honorable mention because it sucks. It's a quarterback award. Everybody knows it at this point. But honorable mention to Derrick Henry. That, like, I've never seen a guy outside of a quarterback control how the team plays, at least offensively, as much as Derrick Henry does. As he goes, that Titan team goes. So I just have to acknowledge that. 3 touchdowns last week, 150 plus yards. He very well may break 2,100 yards this year. Even if it's a 17 game season this season, you still got to tip your cap off to him. A lot of times you see these guys, they run for those 2,000 yards like he did last season, and then it's kind of like, all right, body starts to break down. Yeah. But it's like he just keeps chugging along. He's on like the craziest 3-4 year tear that I've seen. Now that that's been said, we're going to go back to the guy that I've been pushing pretty much all season. The only undefeated team left in football, Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray. Just like I said with Derrick Henry, as Kyler Murray goes, so does the Arizona Cardinals. Not to take anything away from their defense, because, again, I'm also been very vocal about how sneaky good that defense is. But Kyler Murray, what he's been doing is absolutely MVP caliber. Double threat. A lot of guys, they come into the league and they run the ball a ton at the quarterback position. And, you see that they kind of need to work on throwing the ball, staying in the pocket. But, he's a polished passer as well. He doesn't necessarily stay in the pocket, but, he doesn't need to stay in the pocket because he's going to roll out. I guess it might be, because of his height situation, but he'll roll out and be able to see the entire field, and the cast of receivers they put around him, it's really paid off dividends. AJ Green looks like he's found new legs. DeAndre Hopkins, he was going to be DeAndre Hopkins. And then Christian Kirk, he looks like he's finally stepping up. And, other pieces, Rondell Moore, even James Conner, he signs with Arizona this offseason, and he looks like, the running back that started off in Pittsburgh. And the focal point of all of it is Kyler just putting it all together, and every week just choosing a different one of his weapons. So that way most teams are going to say, I'm going to take away DeAndre, but Kyler's like, all right, you can do that. I'm going to make sure that I kill you with my tight end, with my running back, with my second, third, and fourth receiver. And it's just what he's doing on a week-to-week basis. It's a treat to see. And I think he has a real shot of making that push for MVP. Last season was the same, but he kind of faded off towards the end. So I'm anxious to see what the story is this season.
Well, first of all, I've been of the opinion for 40 years now that the biggest mistake the NFL makes is voting for the MVP before the postseason is over, because that would allow you a situation where you could vote a player MVP of the season who had a really great season, maybe even won the Super Bowl, without having to name them Super Bowl MVP if they weren't deserving. And then I think downhill, that makes you could have a player be the MVP of the Super Bowl who's not a quarterback. And these awards that are like quarterback awards, I think, might change a little bit, but who knows? Now at this point, it's just become like a popularity contest for who's your favorite quarterback, and justify how they're the MVP. Because you can make a case for Kyler Murray, you can make a case for Aaron Rodgers, you can make a pretty good case right now, I think, for Lamar Jackson. Though I'm of the opinion that Baltimore is a little bit smoke and mirrory, so we'll see.
I'm with you on that.
It's early in the season, but the thing is, if they don't have Lamar Jackson, what are they, 1-5 or something instead of 5-1? Sneaky
it's
honorable.
Almost crazy to think of, because you look at the last game and it's like he had a pretty bad game the last game, but somehow it was still a blowout, and somehow everyone's still praising Lamar Jackson, even though that last game versus the Chargers was not pretty for him. But we'll get to that later.
It's the fact that the defenses are so scared of him that makes everything else open up. That's what I'm saying. If you don't have him in the game, it really changes the way the defenses play. From the corners and run support, having to worry about if he's running to the edge, to the pass rush, the way the pass rush works and whatever. But it's sneaky honorable mention to Justin Tucker, because he's a kicker, but how many kickers make the kind of difference that he's made? Probably 1-2 games for them this year that if they don't have him, they don't win the game. So that's a big impact. There's not that many players in the NFL who were the difference maker in 2 of their 5 wins this year. But
never gonna happen. But Justin Tucker.
No. It's like that's less chance of that than Aaron Donald winning it, or something. But but anyway, I admire Justin Tucker, and I pretty much. Even though I can't stand him, I admire the way that team's coached, and they have the right mixture of building towards the guys that you have, and they took a big risk with Lamar Jackson because they really had to rebuild their team and structure their offense in a way that was completely different than what they were doing before that and what most NFL teams do. So kudos to them. Although I think if we were doing our power rankings right now, I'm not sure I'd have them at the top spot. But I I have to respect what Lamar Jackson has done to this point. Guys that took a step down, Josh Allen had another one of those games where, much like the week 1, where he had available to him the short passing game, and he just didn't want to take it, and it cost his team the game really ultimately. Mm-hmm. That's a guy I felt was in the conversation before that. Justin Herbert, another one who was having a terrific season and had hit basically a brick wall last week. What are your thoughts on those 2 cats and their games?
Well, Josh Allen, I'm not gonna critique too much. He had a pretty solid game. It's just that defense kind of laid a dud for them in that Monday night game versus the Titans. The Titans are a team nobody really knows what you're gonna get out of them.
They lost to the Jets, Jude. They lost to the Jets.
Yes, they did.
Jets.
That's why I, as well as I'm sure thousands of people across the states thought, it's the Titans. The Bills, probably the best team in football right now. At least they were coming into last game. And it's the Titans. One week they look like, they're a playoff contender. Another week they are losing to the Jets, like literally losing to the Jets. So it just wasn't like the Bills defense was the top ranked defense in all of football. And for them to struggle against the Titans, which really don't have an identity outside of Derrick Henry, it was kind of surprising to me because it's like Ryan Tannehill hasn't really looked good all season. Julio Jones and AJ Brown have been kind of gimpy all year. This was the first time in a while that they've both played in the same game together. And even though they both played, AJ Brown, he was still like battling a stomach virus or something like that. So he wasn't even 100%. And yet the Bills struggle with them. Like I just didn't understand it. I thought this was going to be possibly a blowout. Like I didn't think Titans stood a chance, and the Titans end up winning this game. Josh Allen, I will say, he had a couple plays where it was like, you probably could have made this play. He missed some wide open receivers. I remember there were a couple plays Emmanuel Sanders was just running wide open, and he just couldn't see him. I guess the pressure was getting to him. But he did have a solid... The ball
wasn't coming off of his hand right, Jude. Like it was not, instead of him throwing these nice spirals downfield, everything was kind of like had a weird trajectory to it, which I think is a thing you do whenever you're worried about the pass rush, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, they were on him all day. Kudos to the Titans because they game planned and they really coached up their team well to make it a game and to win that game. But Josh Allen didn't have a terrible game. It's just that defense, I feel, is more responsible for that loss. This is the most points they've allowed all season, especially a team that has 2 shutout games when the rest of the NFL has 1, I believe. And, they just kind of laid a duck out there. I won't say that Josh Allen has fallen off the MVP ladder. I will say Justin Herbert, however, he definitely hit a brick wall last week. This was a Ravens defense that was kind of middle of the pack, and all of a sudden he couldn't do anything against them. Like you have Keenan Allen, he only has 5 catches. Mike Williams, he's having a monster year. He did nothing last week. They shut down that run game. Austin Eckler was one of the top running backs in the league so far this year, but the Ravens came in and they just wanted it more. Justin Herbert couldn't pick up his team. It's kind of what he's been doing all season. Like, the team needed to play. He was there to make that play for them. There were several opportunities where they could have gotten the game, at least in that first half, and he just couldn't make that play. And then second half, it just got away from him.
Yeah, I think the Chargers have 2 primary weaknesses that if you're a team that can exploit them, we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago. If you're a team that can exploit their weaknesses, you have a really good chance against them. But if you can't, they'll kill you. You're like, that's sort of the team they feel like they are right now. Those 2 weaknesses to me are the ability to stop the run consistently, and their quarterback, I think, depends on seeing a lot of zone coverage. There's not a lot of teams who feel like they can match up with the Chargers receivers and play man-to-man against them. Yeah. That's one thing Baltimore can do. They're totally used to playing man-to-man coverage with when their corners are healthy. And so I felt like that was just not a good matchup for the Chargers in that respect. But yeah, I feel like, quarterbacks can come into the leagues and some of them can actually play early and wow. But what really has to happen is the league will adjust to them and they'll figure out something that works. And then it's about how they adjust to that, whether or not they're going to take the next step to be really an elite quarterback for a long time. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is the first moment where Justin Herbert's hit a bump in the NFL, and we'll see what happens from it. Played really well up to this point. Going back to Arizona for a second, the game against Cleveland, there's a situation there where, before the running backs, were hurt earlier in the season, Cleveland was just, manhandling teams. As their running back health started to deteriorate, more pressure was put on their quarterback. They weren't able to make some of the plays they were making earlier. First they lost a close game where they scored a lot of points, and then they lost this game to Arizona. Do you think the Browns are just 3-3 because they just played 3 of the best teams in the NFL and lost to them in close games? Or do you think they're not on the same level as a team like Arizona?
No, we've discussed this in weeks prior. I think it's a combination of that and the injuries that you mentioned. So we discussed it, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, what the Browns are trying to do. They're trying to run the ball. Like, we know that they're not depending on Baker Mayfield to go out and win games for them. They're depending on him to not make mistakes, set up that run game, run some play action off of it, and then play good defense based off of that. Now your running game is not the same. All of a sudden, you can't do what you want to do. So now you're depending on Baker a little bit more. But there's more of an effect than that. Now it's affecting your defense. Now you can't sustain drives. It's 3 and outs. It's turnovers. Even though they didn't have any turnovers last week, but that's expected of them. The week before they had a couple turnovers because they can't run the ball that well. They're depending on Baker to do more. And now the defense has to play more. So now your defense, which is really good, all of a sudden they're on the field a lot more. It's just natural that they're going to be tired more, and eventually they're going to start giving up more scores. So it just sucks for them that they're in this position because they're also playing some of the best teams in football right now.
At the same time, right?
So you pair these injuries with a rough schedule, and now your team is 3-3 when a couple of weeks ago everyone's like, yeah, these guys are shoo-in to make the playoffs. I think they'll still bounce back. They'll get those guys back from injury. None of it is like season ending. Actually, I'm not sure about Kareem Hunt just yet. I know it's a calf injury. I'm not sure of the severity of it.
I think Chubb has the calf injury. Hunt is something else longer term.
No, Hunt has a calf as well.
Also? Okay, well, he's on he's on IR. So
he's on IR?
He's out for at least the next 3 weeks or so, longer. Chubb, they're not sure. He's out for this week, and then they have a sort of mini bye. We'll see what happens after that. The biggest injury issue they have, though, is Baker Mayfield. His
with the
shoulder situation is I have only one inside NFL source. I have some more in the sort of scouting world. But my only legit NFL source is actually a medical person. And he tells me that Baker's shoulder injury is he probably already should have surgery that will put him out for a long time, possibly the season. But he said that, basically another hit that like the one that he had last week, and it'll be so unstable that they won't be able to keep it in the socket without surgery. So he's probably, in a very difficult position because, they're a team that has the pieces that could contend if he were healthy. And if he goes out for any length of time, they might not be that team. So if you want to have a chance at winning and you have the team, you got to stick it out as long as you can, I guess.
It's so ironic, actually, because we're talking about Baker and we're saying, this isn't a guy that's going to go out and win teams for us. But with him, you're a playoff caliber team. And if he's unable to play, like, you might as well just, start looking towards next season.
I don't know. I mean, I like Case Keenum. Is Case Keenum equivalent to Baker Mayfield?
Case Keenum, he was able to get some magic with Minnesota a couple seasons ago. And then off of that, he got a starting job with the Broncos, and he didn't look anything like it. At no other point in his career, I'd even say that he looked anything close to that one magical year he had in Minnesota. So he's not the worst backup quarterback, but he's not a guy that you're going to say, hey, we're still going to go to the playoffs. We're still in contention for a championship. You'll win some games. Maybe you'll get a wild card spot. Best case scenario. I mean, if there's a team that's built for a backup quarterback to step in and take over, it would be Cleveland because, again, they want to run the ball first.
If they're healthy, if their backs are healthy, yeah.
Backs aren't healthy. I just can't see it happening where Case Keenum comes in and saves the day for him. Baker Mayfield is absolutely going to try and do the tough guy, the all in on the team and try and play through it. But at some point, not even Baker, but those above him, general manager, head coach, you have to say, you know what, this is supposed to be our franchise guy. We shouldn't have him out here if it's going to end up being a injury that costs him a lot of time later on down the line, or something that he'll just never recover from in his career. So,
well, he's due for his first big payday right now. I mean, that's the other factor.
Like it's factored into him saying, "I'm going to play through it," but I don't know. Sometimes it comes sometimes it comes at a detriment to yourself.
Yeah, and it's like that Jared Goff deal, staring them in the face right now, because you got this guy who's not healthy right now, who even when he was healthy earlier in the season was still, coming up short in the fourth quarter. And now you're going to have to choose, do I sign him to this mega deal that will require me to restructure the rest of my team and probably lose good players to keep him? Is he that guy? Or if he isn't, what's my plan to replace him? I mean, they're in the worst purgatory situation. This was supposed to be the year. Like, you got to do it this year while you still have him on that contract.
I mean, that contract situation there is really tough because he's asking for like top 5 quarterback money, and
not right now. He's not a top 5 quarterback.
He's not. I don't think there's anybody in
first overall or whatever he was. That's what gets them started.
Years ago, what have you done for me lately? I'm sorry. You're not a top 5 quarterback. You can't get top 5 quarterback money. It's as simple as that. We want to build up the rest of the roster to kind of hide your deficiencies. We can't give you that kind of money if that's what we want to do. It's just not possible. So that's a situation in its own. But he's going to try and play through it to kind of prove that he deserves it. I don't think it's going to work out for him. I think it's going to hurt him in the long run. They should maybe just call it a season. Baker should just call it a season from now, I believe.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks who are out with injury, did you catch any of the Russell Wilson show? Sunday night?
He went out and did a full game run through before anybody was on the field, and I don't really know how I feel about it. It's like,
okay, wait. Then at the last, when the Seahawks made their last completion, and for some reason DJ Metcalf stayed in bounds I have no idea why. Fumbled, which is the risk he took by staying in bounds and keeping the clock moving anyway. Then Russell Wilson runs onto the field in street clothes and does not get penalized for it. And then he comes out for the overtime coin toss in street clothes. I'm going to tell you this. I am kind of a fan of Russell Wilson as a player. I worry that he's in sort of like Terrell Owens, Antonio Brown last year in Pittsburgh territory right now. Like, he appears to be taking this very hard, not playing.
I mean, it's his life. It's what he does. There's a lot of players that dedicate their life to playing football, perfecting their craft. I don't know if any of them do it more than Russell Wilson. Like, this is a guy day in, day out, he's doing whatever he can to be a better football player. He's absolutely doing whatever he can right now to recover from that finger injury. It's weird for him. 10 years in the NFL, this is the first time he's ever missed any games. I mean, how many guys can really say that after 10 years in the NFL? With guys chasing you week in and week out, this is the first time you miss games. I mean, this is just uncharted territory for him. He needs to calm down a little bit for me. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, you think?
I don't want to see the guy in street clothes running out and doing all of that. Like, come on, man, just get better, get back on the field when you can. Until then, stay off the field.
Yeah, this is what I think as well. Hey, let's move on while we have just a little bit of time, because we're already pushing it, and talk about this week's matchups. Because there's a team we didn't mention that is another one of those sort of mystery teams. Are they good or are they an illusion? You have the two teams playing each other who we're going to say that about. It's the Bengals visiting the Ravens. The Ravens are a touchdown favorite right now, but the Bengals have been playing pretty well despite their lack of offensive line and weaknesses in some areas.
Lack of defensive talent, and yet that defense is not bad.
No. So what do you make
really
of this matchup? Let's put it this way. It is a huge game for Cincinnati. It's the kind of game that if the Bengals win this game, they're going to be talking Super Bowl. I'm saying it's like crazy, but they need, this is Cincinnati we're talking about. They never have a team they can root for. Like, it's been 15 years plus. So, is the fact that it really, as we always talk about, this means more to the Bengals. Do you think the Ravens will flinch on their home field?
No, I can't see it happening. The Bengals have severely outperformed, I feel like, anyone's expectations, maybe outside of Cincinnati. For them to beat the Ravens, though, that would probably require their best game of the season. And they've played some pretty good games. Joe Burrow, they definitely have the pieces to be a good team in a very short time. I can't really call them a good team right now. Again, defensively, they just don't have that much talent. And yet they're playing scrappy. They're playing way above what anyone could expect. Offensively, Joe Burrow, he's showing that he has some promise. He's got a lot of skill. It looks like them going out and getting Jamar Chase was the best thing they can do, because that rapport he and Burrow had at LSU looks like it's translating pretty well. But I'm just not buying it right now. Like, this is going to be like the best measuring stick they have. And it's against a team that I'm also not buying. But I will say I'm not buying what the Ravens are selling as a championship team. The Ravens are going to be a playoff team. That's no doubt about that. But I just can't buy that they're a championship team, And right now they're still leaps and bounds better than the Bengals. So for me, it's just like, I can't see Lamar Jackson, an MVP frontrunner right now, just completely going out, laying a dud, and letting the Bengals take this game from them at home. I can't. But I gotta give myself an out and say it's the NFL any given Sunday where things have happened.
Sure.
Blah, blah, but I wouldn't put my money on it. I wouldn't put my money on it.
I mean, I wanted to offer just a bit of respect to the Bengals. It's like they are playing respectable football right now, and they, that's something that it's been missing from there for a while. So, but in this game, styles make the matchup, styles make the fight, right? What I can't see happening is, Baltimore doesn't have any elite pass rush talent right now, but they figure out ways to generate pressure against even teams with good offensive line talent. So to me, the issue with this game is you got corners who are going to be able to cover the Cincinnati receivers, and you have the Baltimore's ability to create pressure. That's a problem for me for Cincinnati. If they can figure out a way to hem, Lamar Jackson and say, you might bend us, but you're not going to break us. Even if they do that, I think they're going to struggle on offense against the Ravens. So I'll take the Ravens.
They beat the Jags, the Bears, the Vikings in overtime. Who's the fourth?
Steelers.
Steelers,
Yep.
But that's when the
And the Steelers
Steelers
were at their absolute worst, probably. That was the worst game.
They were kind of just spiraling out of control at that point.
And injured the whole half the defense was missing and whatever. Yeah. So not inspiring for sure.
I will say they did play the Packers really close, but I guess momentum kind of plays into that too. And
yeah, I mean, like I said,
I'm trying to find a reason to say maybe it could happen, but I can't do it.
I don't think it's like 1,000,001 shot that they have. Like, it's not that kind of crazy upset. It's just it would surprise me a little, but it wouldn't blow my mind. That's the level it is for the Bengals to win. Eagles and Raiders. The Eagles are a 3-point underdog to the Raiders. I think it's an interesting matchup because the Raiders played on a little bit of emotion in a weird, week last week. Philly, you can't figure out how they won, but they won. What do you make of this matchup?
I think they're kind of on the same playing field, even though the Eagles have a way worse record than the Raiders do right now. The Raiders definitely were rolling high on emotion, with the whole situation with John Gruden, and pretty much everyone in the world were counting them out, and they just kind of felt the need to go out and prove that, they're still a viable football team. The Eagles, on the other hand, I feel like they're a much better team than their record would indicate. Jalen Hurts, I have some reservations about, but they have losses to the Cowboys. They have a loss to the Bucks, a loss to the Chiefs, and a loss to the Niners. Those are 4 really good teams. So it's not like they're out here just, losing to a bunch of scrubs, Right. They're playing probably some of the best teams in the league right now. And, it's just unfortunate that they can't win some of these games to kind of legitimize how good of a team they are. I feel like this might be their best chance right here, right now, to kind of show that, hey, we're a good football team. It's just we got a really tough schedule to start the season, and maybe they can start a little run of games. I mean, they get the Raiders here, they get the Lions next week, they get the Chargers, which is another tough game for them. But if you can win these 2 games, now you've got some momentum. Now you're kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. Who knows what could happen with the Chargers, and they're kind of coming off a loss too. So who knows what's going to happen with them? I feel like this is a game that the Eagles can win, but you can say the same very easily about the Raiders. I mean, I thought, your offensive coordinator basically, and John Gruden is out. Who's going to be calling the plays? How's this team going to look? What are you guys really thinking to do as a complete team? Yeah. And you know what? They came out and they showed we're going to be resilient throughout all of this. And kudos to them, but I'm still not buying it. It was just the other day where, they went from a 3-0 to a 3-2 team. I mean, a win kind of makes you forget about that because now you're sitting at 4-2. But during those 2 losses, it was a lot of head scratching and what team is this? These guys don't look good. So they're not very far from falling right back into a situation like that. But at the very least, I think it will be a good game between these 2 teams. Both of them really need this win. I'm actually favoring the Eagles a little bit more in this one.
Well, I got a theory. I put in my head, I put teams in sort of boxes. The Raiders, to me, are a team that is capable of playing terrific games against anybody and playing horrible games against anybody. That, to me, spells 500 team or thereabouts. So they're a team that's going to end up eventually finding their level, which is, nearer to 500 than not. Philly reminds me a little bit of the Steelers in that they play ugly football. So it never looks good. They might not win enough to even be 500, but it feels like they're going to be in every game. So I'm taking Philly in the points. I'm taking Philly in 5 points because I feel like this is going to be a close game, closer than that. I think they might actually win even because their annoying style of football, especially on offense, could be effective against a team that depends. Like the Raiders, I think, are pretty dependent on their pass rush. So you got a mobile quarterback. It sort of takes Max Crosby's value a little bit away from the Las Vegas Raiders.
Crosby had a monster game last week. I think it was like 4 or 5 sacks or something like that.
No, he's I was been on Max Crosby since he was a sophomore in college. Always thought that he was going to be a good NFL prospect. But he's had a terrific season. But this is, you just got a guy that can move a little bit. And that's really, especially not only that, he wants to move. Jalen Hurts is not looking to hang in there and prove something as a pocket passer. He's trying to get the hell out of Dodge. So that makes it a lot harder on a pass rusher, edge rusher who doesn't have an idea where the spot is. Like you're trying to hit the spot when you leave when you take the snap. But if you don't know where that spot is, where the quarterback's going to be, it definitely makes it harder.
But like the thing with Crosby is like the first game of the season, I think he had another monster game.
He did.
Where it was like 3 sacks, I think he had in that first game. It was either 2 or 3 sacks.
Well, he was playing against somebody who probably shouldn't be in the NFL anymore, and Alejandro Villanueva. But yeah, that was a, even against Lamar Jackson, you just can't have your edge guy win immediately off the snap and, all game long and not give up some sacks. But
right. But the thing is, like, after that game, he kind of like tapered off. Didn't really have. He hasn't. Yeah, it was just that first game. He had the 2 sacks, and then the last game he had 3 sacks, and then in between, kind of, his motor's there, his effort is there, but not really any production.
No, he's a physical freak. He was a big tester, and he's extreme length for an edge player. So he's gonna win. He's going to dominate certain matchups where the other guy doesn't have the physical talent, right? So you have to have really good technique and physical talent yourself in order to keep Max Crosby at bay. If you have one or the other, you might be able to stop him enough of the time. If you have neither, you're going to get killed. I mean, that's basically the kind of player he is.
Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, he's absolutely going to run the ball. That's about the only thing I would say he does consistently. If anything, I'd say they need to run him more because I feel like that's when he's most comfortable. And then it's just him passing the ball. I need to see some more consistency from it. Like 1 week he'll throw for 350 plus and a couple touchdowns, and then last week he throws for $115. I mean,
but how can they only give Miles Sanders like 2 touches a half?
That was going to be my next point. They just need some more continuity on offense. Miles Sanders, he touched the ball how many times?
I think 4 or 5. I'm not exaggerating. I think that's how many touches.
Yeah. But he doesn't. He still ends up with 56 rushing yards. Usually that's an indication like give me the ball more. But it's just like they don't have a complete identity on offense yet. And I think it's absolutely a reflection of, Jalen Hurts. Like, can we throw the ball consistently? No. All right. So now we're just going to run the ball a little bit more with our quarterback and then maybe not run the ball with our running backs. And then at the same time, you have all these receivers that can make plays for you, but you watch him throw the ball downfield and it's like, it's a little underthrown. It's a little overthrown. It's not consistent enough for me to be like, these guys are really good. But that's the thing. Like, they're still a decent enough team that they can be in a game
ugly team
and win those games somehow, some way. If they can figure it out on offense, this is actually going to be a really good team. This will be a team that can put up a lot of points because Miles Sanders can absolutely run the ball. And then Kenneth Gainwell can run the ball as well. Jalen Hurts can run the ball as well. Jalen Hurts just needs to figure out how to consistently and effectively, efficiently throw the ball at quarterback. And then this Eagles offense is going to be dynamic and, dare I even say it, maybe unstoppable.
They should be running the wishbone. I think they'd be a really good I mean, I'm not even joking. Like, how fun would that be? They have the players for that for sure because Gainwell's really a flanker, who can do stuff from the flanker spot, and you could run one of those big tight ends back there next to Miles Sanders. That would be fun. Like, if they had Jim Caldwell or imagination, they might actually try that.
I've got some breaking news for you. An email I just received. Now it's actually on the NFL app too. Case Keenum is going to be starting for the Browns on Thursday.
Yeah, well, I think coming back on a short week, especially, that's not super surprising. And they play the Steelers next. So if they're gonna sacrifice a game, it's going to be against Denver versus against Pittsburgh. So my guess is Case Keenum this week, and if he doesn't look that great, it'll be Baker again the following week. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. The question, TJ Watt bearing down on me. That doesn't sound like a good plan.
The question now is, if Case Keenum comes out and he's just red hot, are you saying, all right, let's shut down Baker, or are you sticking with Baker?
Oh, me personally, I'm telling them to have a surgery, but I also don't know, is the surgery absolutely season ending or is it like 5 or 6 weeks? My impression is that it's, in order to be really safe, it's at least 8 or 9 weeks, which is pretty much the season. So I think I don't shut him down until I have to, but I also don't play him any more than I have to. That's sort of a balance, but that's a hard territory for an NFL team to be in. And it's not like they're lost without him. It's just like it's better with him, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. Hey, that's a good piece of breaking news. One last game, Chiefs at Titans is an interesting. It's like, it's the rematch of these, postseason games that they've played. And it is the typical, in people's minds, when they think, how do you beat Kansas City? Well, you run the football and you keep the ball away from Patrick Mahomes. Well, here's your team that theoretically can do that, but they haven't managed to really, they had the Chiefs on the ropes a couple times, but they never put them away. Right now, though, are the Titans maybe playing well enough to pull this off?
Titans are such a mixed bag of results. It's like they play a game like last week and you're like, man, this is a really good team. And again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but they lose to the Jets and they're like, what are these guys, But just like you said, they've got Derrick Henry and they've got the Chiefs run defense. That's like a match made in heaven for the Titans, at least, where you just do what you do best and you should come out of this with a win. The only other thing is, you also have to shut down Patrick Mahomes. Some teams have had a little bit of success. Nobody's really shut him down, but
Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
They've slowed him down and they've forced him to make some mistakes. It looks like get a couple turnovers. Like he's got 8 interceptions already this season, as opposed to 6 for all of last season. So it looks like if you can force him to turn the ball over once or twice and just do what you do offensively with Derrick Henry, the Titans might be favored to win here. Like the Chiefs probably played their best defensive game last week, but I don't have faith in them to stop Derrick Henry as hot as he is, as hard as he is to tackle. You'll start off the game, maybe even the first half, stopping Derrick Henry, and he won't have nothing, and you're feeling good about yourself. But then you've got that second half, and it's like all of a sudden he's found his legs, and he's just gashing your defense for 20-yard runs, 15-yard runs, taking it to the house for 70-plus yards. Like, this is what Derrick Henry does. And you know what? It's like the Titans might be favored. The Chiefs might have taken a step down from that elite level of clubs this year into like that level of clubs, maybe even lower than that, but maybe into that level of clubs, just kind of fighting to stay in the playoff race.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is Chris Jones playing this week for the Chiefs?
Haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, I don't know that either. That to me is like you can't overestimate how bad the Chiefs defense is against anybody. Mm-hmm. But it'll be an interesting test. Can you score enough points by running Derrick Henry to beat the Chiefs? It's possible, just because I don't see the Chiefs stopping the Titans running the football as the way they run it. So that's like they're going to shorten the game by enough to keep it close. I still like Patrick Mahomes in a close game. But yeah, it's like I think every week is sort of a must win for the Chiefs right now. And they're,
that's going to be my next question. It was going to be, who needs this win more? Do the Titans need it more to kind of prove that they're a legitimate team, or do the Chiefs need it more to show we're still one of the best teams in the league?
You got me, bud. I mean, I don't think anybody really has the clear edge in that regard. But I just don't. There's something about the Chiefs that's just not right this year. Like it feels a little bit like, there's just preseason favorites every year in the NFL who just don't live up to their billing during the course of the year. And the Chiefs just appear to be riding that wave right now. So I'm gonna, strangely enough, say I think the Titans might win this game. I mean, the Chiefs are favored. They're given 5 points or whatever on the quote unquote spread. But yeah, I'm just not. I don't love that.
I kind of want to go with the Chiefs just because of more their history than what they've done this year. But after seeing what the Bills did against a really good Bills offense just enough to win the game. That's all they have to do. Just enough to win the game. Let Derrick Henry carry you to this victory. If you can do what you did last week, just enough to win the game, this can be another game for you, especially because, honestly, the Chiefs are not as good a team as the Bills are right now. So very winnable game for the Titans. This is definitely a chance for them to make a statement.
Agreed. Jude, on that note, I think we should probably call it a day. See you next week after some other strange happenings in the NFL, and at least Baker Mayfield's shoulder won't fall out, which is Jude Allume. I'm Wil Masisak. Hit the like button, subscribe to Old School, New School, and in the meantime, see you next week on another episode of Old School, New School. I am so lame.